Hello, I'm Jake Stone,
I'm Jesse Owens.
and we welcome you to another episode of Generally Particular, a production of the London Lyceum. Generally Particular is a show dedicated to discussing and reflecting on the whole Baptist story. We are a show by Baptists, about Baptists, and for Baptists, as well as Anglicans, Methodists, Presbyterians, Lutherans, and I don't know, maybe if there's a random Seventh-day Adventist or Mormon who's listening to us today. I am a Calvinistic Baptist. Jesse is an Arminian Baptist. In the 17th and 18th centuries, we would have been known as a particular Baptist and a general Baptist. And so we've created Generally Particular, which we think is a fun show to talk about the Baptist story. We're glad to be back after a little bit of a summer break. I was down in the heat and the humidity of the Mississippi Gulf Coast for a couple of weeks. I was reminded of how, when I might think that it gets muggy in Louisville, it does not compare to the tropics of the Gulf of Mexico. Of course, my dad says that since I've been living up here in Yankee Land, that I have grown soft in my ability to navigate the heat and humidity. While I was down there helping my dad cut grass and do other yard work, Jesse spent Florida at Disney World. There, at a great vacation of roller coaster rides and dancing with the Disney princesses, I guess. So, Jesse, tell us about some of your summer activities.
Well, before we get there, I think people who have listened to this at all will not be surprised by this. So, Jake, yes, he might have mowed the grass, with his dad a time or two, but I got a lot of pictures of Jake's many meals, Gulf Coast meals, an assortment of fried things. Fried fish, fried shrimp, various stews, and fried onion rings.
What is stews? What's stews?
I don't know.
So Jesse's showing that he doesn't know what he's talking about this.
What would your category be for something like I don't know, like an etouffee?
Etouffee. That's what it is. It's a category in and of itself. That's what the mind that's not from here, like yours, can't conceive of.
Tries to
put just like you always want to put God in a box, in your theological categories. You can't put etouffee and gumbo and jambalaya in a box. They are unique categories. So I did have fried catfish and fried fish or fried shrimp. Yes, some delicious homemade fried onion rings and some unreal fried okra from Catfish Charlie's. That's in Gulfport. It's been there since 1980. Great fish house. I had at Salute, which is my favorite restaurant on the coast down there on the beach in Gulfport. I had one time the Catfish Supreme, which is a bed of rice with 3 catfish fillets and then this crawfish and shrimp sauce that's poured on top of it. And then I just went down there and had a fried shrimp platter one night as well.
What about the shrimp po' boy? Isn't that a classic?
So I didn't get a po' boy this go around. In fact, I was very distressed. Salute no longer sells seafood gumbo, which really distressed me. So I didn't get any gumbo on my trip home this time. But that's okay, because usually gumbo is more of a wintertime cold. So when it's 55 back home, I mean, that's cold. So that's gumbo weather. And then I had some excellent crawfish etouffee at Cafe New Orleans, which is in the D'Iberville community. And then on my way back to Louisville, I stopped in Birmingham and had a really great time with Evan Musgraves, who's a faithful listener to the Generally Particular. And he works there at Beeson with Dr. Timothy George. And so we had a great history tour of some civil rights sites and some Baptist history sites there in Birmingham. And he took me to the Irondale Cafe outside Birmingham. And it's like an old timey depot restaurant, train depot restaurant. Been there since 1920. I got the fried chicken with fried green tomatoes. I'm not usually a big fan of those, but these were fried perfectly with an excellent remoulade sauce that had just enough kick to it. Fried okra and then the chocolate chess pie and a piece of cornbread and sweet tea.
Oh, my word. Wow.
It was good. Look, folks, I love food. I love it. Wow. And so, and that's why I have to try to go run in this heat so I can at least look normal. Not that I look fit, but to look normal. So,
wow. That
And
was
then
quite a meal.
me and Jesse got to hang out. Of course, Jesse can only take me to McDonald's when I'm in town. That's all that he can afford. And no, we went to Chewy's because
Well,
Jesse.
we don't all have that Southern Baptist money, so.
No, you got higher than that down there,
Yeah, right.
so Jesse has actually made me more of a Tex-Mex guy since I've lived
Hmm.
up here, and so we went to Chewy's, and
I feel
I actually,
that I feel very honored for you
yeah,
saying
you
that. We
should,
haven't done anything with coffee, but we're heading the
yeah,
right way
well,
on this.
and so I actually though persuaded Jesse to try something new,
Hmm.
and we both got the steak burrito with the chili verde sauce on it, and I've actually had that dish 3 times in the last 10 days. So
Oh my word! I've only had it that one time. Yeah, so I usually I get a burrito a lot at Chewy's, which is where we went. But Jay convinced me I needed to try the steak burrito with this particular sauce, and then I took that white creamy jalapeno, which Jake did not do.
no, I
I
don't do
took the
that.
white creamy jalapeno and put that on top of there, and it was excellent. I have to say that might be my new menu go to. So for whatever way I've influenced you on Chewy's or Mexican food or Tex Mex, you've got me on the steak burrito now. So
Yeah.
yeah, so we had
Tell us about
our
Disney World and
yeah
Snow
yeah.
White and the Seven
So
Dwarfs.
my denomination's
By the way, have
annual.
you seen that trailer for the new live action of this? What is? I don't understand. Disney has lost, I guess, creativity. Every great classic cartoon movie they try to make in real life, and the dwarves are all CGI. They're not even real people. That's crazy. All right, go ahead. Now that I'm done with that rant for a moment.
I feel like that's a minefield. I'm not going to walk into that. I was about to comment, but then I was thinking, okay, what words would I use and how would I no. Okay, so my denomination, the National Association of Free Will Baptists, our annual meeting was in Tampa. And so Orlando's about an hour and 20 minutes down the road. So we went down 3 days early and we went to Magic Kingdom, Animal Kingdom, and SeaWorld on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then went to our annual meeting Sunday through Wednesday of the following week. And it was for however hot it was in Mississippi. I can't imagine it was any worse than Tampa and Orlando. It was 95 with, I don't know, felt like 100% humidity. And so my kids had a great time. My wife and I survived. My parents went with us, so that helped some. They were kind of able to help us with the kids and getting around everywhere and everything. So we survived. The kids had a great time. My oldest is 9, and we did every big ride we could get to. He's really excited about the roller coasters, so we went on as many of those as we could, and it was a lot of fun. It was a good time.
I was really hoping that Jesse was going to send a picture out of him wearing a Mickey hat. I think our
Mm.
audience would have really appreciate that. I've only been to Disney once, and that was when I was 5, so I don't remember a whole lot of it. I do remember vaguely the Hall of Presidents, which obviously you would think
Yes,
that would be the thing that I would remember.
they still have it.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
still have
and
it.
I remember that. Of course, this doesn't exist anymore under this name, which we won't go down that rabbit trail. But the old Splash Mountain, and we have the picture. My mom is not a rides person, and so it was hilarious because the way it worked for us is she's sitting with a stranger, another lady about her age at that time, and then me and my dad are behind, and me and my dad got more of a kick out of watching my mom
Mm.
during that. And when the picture of us coming down Splash Mountain, my mom's freaked out, and me and my dad are behind laughing as we watch her. So that's what I remember about
Yeah.
Disney
Well,
World.
that is one of the more memorable rides there. They have some other new ones. They have one called after the Tron movie, and you get on there, and it's almost like I guess like a motorcycle is kind of how you sit on there. I haven't seen the movie. That one was pretty cool. I think Splash Mountain. I think this is right. Now it's this. It's a newer Disney characters themed after a newer Disney movie, which I haven't seen, but it was fun. It was still fun. They changed it some. There's still the big like water drop at the end, and so the boys like that a lot. So
And think people should know that Jesse and his family are one of the first families of the Free Will Baptist denomination. He sent me a
No.
picture of them gathered together there on the stage. And it was very photogenic, and almost looked like
Well,
they were campaigning for the presidency.
yeah, that's what we're doing. Uh, no, our denomination does on Wednesday evening. I don't know what the SBC does on Wednesday evening. They have international missionaries and church planters, and they introduce some of them, and you walk across the stage. So our church is a church plant of our denomination, and so the reason we were on stage is because we're church. Our church is a church plant, not not because of whatever Jake's come up with here.
We'll let Jesse tell us the polite, correct line that he's supposed to say to us this afternoon for our audience.
Yeah.
So we're recording this. So we hope everybody's had a really good summer. We're recording this on August the 14th of 2024, which today is the 5-year anniversary of the London Lyceum since its inaugural podcast episode.
Wow.
And I remember listening to those early ones.
Hmm.
They were kind of like our first episodes. They were rough.
Well, yeah.
And the only
This
difference, though,
this
is
show
that
has hopefully gotten slightly
Yeah.
better over time.
well, the only thing though that made those better is you don't see Brandon and Jordan. Everybody's always been looking at us since the beginning because of Jordan's brilliance and wonderful ideas that he had to start. And so, but 5 years, and of course, I was one of the early on guests, as I like to say, because they really couldn't get anybody that good early on, so they just got me there. But I'm so happy.
You did some stuff on Fuller, right? Some filler.
No,
on Fuller.
no. The first ones that I did, as I did an episode kind of chronicling my journey out of King James only fundamentalism,
Oh,
and then I did an episode on the New Hampshire Confession,
Mhm.
and I did later do one on Andrew Fuller that was more of a response episode to another podcast that they'd had. So that was the Fuller one.
Jake's Andrew Fuller hot takes.
No, it was
I
just
heard that episode.
I was just trying to make the record clear that I thought that had not been. So we'll just leave it at that. But yeah, and so we're really glad. They're right now, doing a fundraiser for the London Lyceum. So we would encourage anybody, even past the time of listening to this, that you would donate to the cause of LL. And then tomorrow, August the 15th, is Jesse's birthday.
Hmm.
And so you will be entering the 40s club. Is that correct? Tomorrow? No, he's not actually. But what's funny, as I was thinking about this, I've been programming this line for all day today. But actually, Jesse will not be entering 40 tomorrow. But at the next presidential election year, 4 years from this year, 2028, he will be entering.
That's
the
true.
40 club. So that's going to be 2028. Will be momentous. We'll have an election, and Jesse officially will be over the hill. So yeah.
That's true. I almost made a comment about my voting, but I should probably restrain myself.
I turned 35 last month, and so now I am constitutionally eligible to run for president. But I'm not declaring my candidacy here today.
It's a little late in the process, It's a little late.
Well, we've had some switcheroos here in the last few
weeks.
So.
As long as there's not any, as long as there are no skeletons like you killed a bear and drug it into Central Park or anything, anything like that.
Yeah, and taking a picture with a dead cub and say, hey, look, here I am. With it. No, okay, so I will say this. This will be my only hot take that I'll make on the current shenanigans going on in our country. One of the most interesting articles that I've read, though, that I think actually is one hope that I have, is that it made the comment with the whole switching out and, Harris is now going to be the nominee, that maybe this will lead to us actually going back to having shorter campaigns. And I think that would be a positive. I think if we went back to having a 4-month or 5-month at the longest presidential campaign would be great. And I know that Britain is not in a great place right now, but I will say that, their model of doing 6 weeks of campaigning before parliamentary elections, I think would be helpful. This 2.5 year thing we do is just mind numbing.
Yeah. So. That's true, but it feeds.
Don't let Jesse fool you. He was taking copious notes of the Elon Trump Twitter space the other night.
it feeds the news cycle though.
Yeah. Well, yeah, yeah. Well, instead of governing, we're always campaigning, which is
Yeah.
part of the problem. So
Well,
Jesse,
we're
oh,
not
go
going to
ahead.
do any. This is not going to be an episode on Elon Musk, but I will say,
He's Jesse's hero, actually.
no, no, he's not. He's not. But I do think I do think he's a sort of fascinating figure. I want to go back to the London Lyceum fundraiser, which we do encourage all of you to support what London Lyceum is doing, and uh, Hanover Press and Generally Particular is a part of that. And so we'd certainly encourage each of you to support that. One of the things that we tried to get President Stefaniak to let us do is to do a Jake Stone dunk tank, a live stream dunk tank, but he wouldn't let us do that. We had
No,
some other ideas. You want to share? You want to share any of our other
I
ideas?
wanted to throw a pie in your face.
Yeah, Jake wanted to pie me in the face. I came up with we should do, people could pay a small sum of money to have Jake send customized like birthday wishes, or he could say like "Go Vols" or "War Eagle" or something like that. But President Stefaniak wasn't for that, so
I wanted Jesse to say that Calvin is the way, but
I told him I could do that before I said "War Eagle" or "Go Vols."
yeah. So anyway, we'll see what shakes out and what happens. But I'm so thankful for the work that's happening at the London Lyceum. And as we're about to begin the new school year, Jesse, what are you going to be teaching at Welch this semester?
Let's see. I have Systematic Theology 1, which is like an intro to systematic theology, kind of a prolegomena. I have Biblical Interpretation, which I teach, and that's ministry students, mission students. And I'm doing a class on preaching. So, yeah, it's kind of a wide range there.
Good deal. So today we're just going to kind of do something we've done in the past. We just call Baptist Buffet to kind of just talk about things in Baptist land and just few thoughts and insights and what I would famously call more of a wing it kind of episode today. And so
We're just trying to come back slowly from our summer hiatus.
yeah. And so one of the things that I was very much recently read a book, Let Men Be Free, on Baptist politics in America from 1776 to 1835. There's a lot of interesting chapters in that book. One of the things that stood out to me the most in that book was the chapter on Baptist and education. And one of the things that I found most fascinating, and this kind of stems with education and mission societies in the early 19th century. And so Baptists by our DNA are populist. And what I mean by that is that we are a grassroots movement. We don't have a centralization, we don't have a hierarchy, we don't have any kind of top down structure. We're from the ground up. That's how it's worked in Baptist polity. So that's at our very core in the sense. But as we have went along as a movement, we often have this struggle between certain parts of Baptist life wanting to be pure populism and another segment of Baptist life that has sought to be institutional, that has sought to organize, to build institutions, whether that's seminaries, colleges, mission societies, etc. And it's reading about those struggles in the early to mid 1800s and the suspicion of education and what education will do to a person. People wondered, that's still with us.
Oh
It's still
yeah.
with us to this day.
Oh yeah.
Why do you think that is, Jesse? What do you why do you think? You just think that will always be a battle in Baptist life until Jesus comes back?
Yeah, I mean that's a good question. I wanted to start by saying if you grew up in certain circles, people might have called it seminary cemetery. So it's a place where your spirituality goes to die, or maybe your fervor for preaching or for the Lord or something goes to die. So
I had a good friend of mine just tell me about an experience he had in the deep south when he went back home, and a older preacher using the cemetery language to him when he
yeah,
found out he was at seminary. So it still exists, yes.
yeah, still exists. I think Baptists historically, there are exceptions, right? We have our Kiffins, and there are some other exceptions, but Baptists historically have been um, poorer, maybe from lower end of society. And so I think when you start thinking about institutions and uh, educational institutions and societies, there is a distrust of maybe people higher up on the social ladder, or maybe even of some sort of hierarchy in general. So I think those things are there from sort of the inception. And while there has been some upward mobility socioeconomically among Baptists, let's say certainly within the last century or so, um, that's still somewhat of an anomaly. I mean, you have your really big, kind of First Baptists or various mega churches, but for the most part, I would say that Baptists have tended to be the poorer sort of folks and lower end of the socioeconomic spectrum. And I think built into that, whether we're talking about church or quite frankly anything else, there is a little bit of a distrust of authority that's kind of built into the whole thing. You see a little bit of that though, even I think you might agree with this. You see a little bit of that even within the first and second Great Awakenings, though. I mean, for all of the good things maybe that George Whitefield did, there is within even the first Great Awakening some questioning of authority and of pastors and of things like that. So maybe some of that is an evangelical problem too, but it does seem to plague Baptists maybe a little bit more than it has Methodists or Presbyterians or other Protestant evangelical groups. So I don't know. Maybe it changes over time, but it's been with us for 4 centuries now, at least 3.5 centuries now. So I don't know that I suspect it'll be changing anytime soon.
I also think it's interesting, and I think part of the same struggle and tension that we have is, you know, reading Baptist, especially New England at the end of the 18th and beginning of the 19th century. They really had a desire to some of them to be seen more respectably by others, and that was one of the reasons I think
Yeah.
that perhaps they wanted to build institutions. And then the flip side of is like somebody like John Leland, for example. I mean, he was a pure populist, and he thought that trying to have institutions and do those kinds of things was almost to bring in the leaven of the Congregationalists and the Anglicans, and it would corrupt the purity of
Mm.
the Baptist movement. And I think we even still see that now. I mean, there's a lot of the debates that have been going on in like Southern Baptist life, and one of the critiques that some would make, I would say that some that are on the more pure populist wing still to this day, that's always one of their critiques about whether it's the third wayism or nuancing or winsomeness or whatever else. They're saying that you're just trying to be respectable in the eyes of the world. And I think there can be a danger of trying to get the world's approval, but I
Sure.
also think that there's I don't think it behooves us, to use an old good King James word here
Mm.
today, to just like embrace the notion of Billy Sunday. I don't know any theology. I
Yeah.
don't know no doctrine, and
Maybe
almost
maybe
like
it's. I'm
embrace
not
it.
even sure it's Billy Sunday. I think it's more like J. Frank Norris. I think that. I think that's
Well, yeah,
that's more what it's like. Guns ablazing.
well, well,
That's a good Frank Norris joke right there.
yes. So it's just
Okay,
interesting
so
that that's still like we wrestle with that to this day.
yeah. Well, how about though the reality that there's some truth to that historically, right? I mean, you think about somewhere like Brown. You can think about even places like Southern Seminary, right? Over the course of the 20th century, on the heels of the founders. I mean, you don't even have to get half a century in before you do have those sorts of problems. So there is something to engaging um, in the academy that is potentially dangerous. Um, Certainly after the Enlightenment, and certainly with the modern research university, and as people are getting educations in European context in particular, but I mean, you have this in the American context, and institutions like Harvard and Princeton and others, there's a sense in which um, there's truth there. There's something to that. And I think the more disconnected that our academic institutions become from the local church, the greater danger we are in creating some sort of other thing, right?
Yeah.
That says it's supposed to serve the church, but really doesn't. I was listening to a podcast this morning on something really quite different, but the interviewee was talking about different context, and he was talking about reading context and how we read things differently in different contexts. So the academy might read differently than we would in the church, and I think that's accurate. So if we separate the academy or the seminary and the church too much, then we are in danger of not serving the church and of deviating maybe from orthodoxy or even importing heterodoxy into the local church. So I think there are some sort of impulses there, some anti-authoritarian impulses that are built in historically because of who Baptists have been. I think there's something with that populist impulse that you mentioned that's a part of it too. But then there are also some things that are probably historically rooted in reality that people have should have legitimate concerns about. Um, you know, I think we can say even in the structure of our nation, there's built into it a sort of distrust of
Yeah.
individuals and the ability of individuals to become corrupt, and so there are checks and balances for those sorts of things. So it can be bad. It can be toxic. And I think, quite frankly, I think we see a lot of that toxicity even now, at least on social media. I don't know that we always see it in the church. Sometimes it's good to remind ourselves that all of the barking dogs on social media are not what we actually encounter in our
Right.
neighbors or in our communities or in our congregations. That's an important thing to remind ourselves of. But it can become toxic. But a healthy level of care and checks and balances, and I hate to say suspicion, but maybe a little bit of kind of keeping our wits about us is not necessarily a bad thing.
And I think the key always for Baptist institutions, whether we're talking about educational or missions or anything like that, I think keeping it tied, as you were talking about, keeping it tied to the local churches, that the people in the pew really feel like they do have a good understanding of what's going on. And I know that you can only do that to a certain degree, but I do think it's interesting in some of the history that I've read on, for example, the history of Southern Seminary, at least in the early decades of the school, it was very common for a professor to go on behalf of the school to association meetings in Kentucky,
Yeah,
to even go to
yeah,
state conventions on behalf of the institutions. And I'm sure there's still a sense in which that happens today. I just think that was interesting that there was very much, I think, at the beginning, at least in Southern's history, I think that they understood the importance of the institutions being tied to
yeah,
the churches, the associations, and so the people understood. Now there was also, there was a lot of conflict that happened at those times because the associations, especially with the William Whitsitt controversy and landmarkism and all that kind of stuff, like some of the associations in Kentucky were very vocal in their displeasure with William Whitsitt and so forth, and that was kind of part of the tie that led to him being washed out from Louisville. But I just think I think that that's doing what you can as an institution and make sure that the people on the ground have a sense like they know what's going on. I think goes a
mhm,
long ways in helping to remove and silence those. I would say there are some very bad actors who are always
sure.
trying to sow discord and division and distrust.
Sure.
about in the language of the elites and whatever. That's not new. That's always been. And I mean,
Yeah.
if you go read the people who did not were anti-mission society and did not like Luther Rice, my goodness. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
they
And
call modern day Tetzel and worse.
it's funny in England, you might say, well, those folks in London,
Yeah, yeah,
in my
yeah.
denomination, it can be, and I would assume in the SBC as well, it can be, like those folks in Nashville, so you can have a little bit of that. I, again, I think some of those things can be healthy so long as people aren't trying to intentionally sow division. Several things come to mind though, thinking about the relationship of institutions and denominations and local churches and things like that. Accountability is a good thing. So a realization on the part of people in local churches and in the people of the institutions. I work at Welch College, which is owned and operated by the National Association of Rural Baptists. So a recognition of the churches that this school is fully accountable to our denomination, a recognition of faculty and staff that we are accountable to the denomination. So there's some accountability there. I think in as far as keeping those ties close as well, something you mentioned is really good, and I think this is something that a lot of our staff at Welch College do well, of getting into local and state association meetings and attending those meetings, giving updates on the institution, potentially even preaching. That helps people feel as if they're connected to the institution. That matters. And then I think, insofar as is possible, having faculty and staff, thinking specifically about colleges and seminaries, who are practitioners, that matters too. It matters that the people know that faculty and staff are involved in the local church, whether it's as a pastor, even if it's consistently or faithfully teaching a Sunday school class or something like that, but that you're actually involved in the life of a local church in a significant way. There are probably plenty of other things, but I think those few things are important.
And then last thing to just touch on real quick is that I've seen recently kind of debates on what makes something authoritative in Baptist life. Is it merely a declaration that has signatures? Is it or anonymous? Or what is it? And I think it's important for people to realize the role that confessions actually do play in being an authoritative document in Baptist life and forming the consensus, especially like if you go take a look at the front page of the First London Baptist Confession or the Second London, it makes clear that this confession represent the churches, that the churches sent representatives
Yeah.
to actually sign or affirm or adopt this statement. And that definitely makes them more authoritative than anything else. And I think that's what, even in our own day, where there's been a lot of statements that have gotten um, produced and
Yeah.
get made into litmus test, and yet nobody knows exactly who wrote it, how it was written, blah 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 blah. It's a lot different than looking at a confession of faith that had a committee or had these men that were writing it, and then a association of churches actually formally adopting it. Am I
I've
off the
recently
mark there?
I've recently heard that you can make single books a litmus test. So,
I've heard that
um,
too.
yeah, no creed but the book, and it's not the Bible.
We're not the Bible. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I agree. So, I mean, thinking about confessions of faith and creeds within the life of the church, of course, I would assume most of our listeners would know this, but we're always saying that the authority is derivative. It's derived from the authority of Scripture, and confessions are authoritative insofar as they faithfully convey what we believe the teachings of Scripture are. But for the life of the church or an association of churches, they're authoritative as a statement of what the churches of this association or this denomination believe that Scripture teaches. So again, you're always free to disagree, but and you can go elsewhere, right? Voluntary association, that's a key component. You can, if you think Scripture teaches something else, you're free to go somewhere else and believe and teach in accordance with what you think Scripture says. So it's derivative authority, but they're authoritative over institutions, especially institutions that are governed by denominations or associations, and they're authoritative for churches. So, and I think you're spot on to say a lot of these statements that are issued, even that come out of committees, the problem with a lot of those is not that they're not maybe good statements, but it seems as if what typically happens is you don't find some sort of consensus of, oh, the state association of Baptists of this state affirmed this, however many churches in this state. It's like big name evangelical from this place affirms this. Big
Yeah.
name evangelical pastor, seminary president, uh, denominational institution leader. So it is removed from the life of the church. Whereas with the confessions, like, sure, do you have the names of individual pastors? Yes, but as representatives of those congregations, where on these statements, I think that you're referring to that we've seen over the last, I mean, you've seen them over a lot, but certainly over the last 10 or 20 years, tend to be just who are the big name heavy hitters.
Yeah.
And they sign their names. And that is different. I think something is lost there, even from a Baptist perspective, that's valuable.
And I think that somewhat has maybe led, not intentionally, but I think maybe it's a side effect of why there's been so much confusion in Baptist life over the role of subscription and how confessions do function when you have so many, we'll put it, parachurch statements in a sense that are getting put out there and made as authoritative as if it is like a confession of faith in an association or denomination or even a local church. And I think that's maybe has contributed some to the fuzziness and not understanding.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I mean, I think we have all sorts of chaos now. Um, And some of it's related to just a general distrust of institution and of
Yeah.
leadership. And again, some of the reasons for that are because leaders and institutions um, have discredited themselves, and
Mhm.
so we can't overlook that institutions and leaders have responsibility that they haven't lived up to, and quite frankly, never in any generation ever do. Right? But there is something there. But it's interesting that void, so you have kind of populist leaders who come along, undermine, question established leaders, established institutions, and things like that. They try to undermine, undercut, create a void, and then try to fill that void with themselves. Make themselves the new authority, the new leader. That shouldn't be lost on people. We should be attentive to that, and you can see that, quite frankly, I would say, in American politics, and you see it in evangelical life. You see it in Baptist life. So I think we have to always kind of be aware of those things.
All right. Well, it's great to be back on and to start the new kind of school year. The fall is, we had a few fallish days at the beginning of this week where it was in the low 60s here in the
Yeah,
morning time, and a
I
little
think
bit
they
more.
call that. I think they call that false fall. Where it's
Yes.
like you
Yeah.
get those few cool days, and then you're reminded, oh no, it's still August in the South.
Yeah, it was kind of, it was warm today. It was warmer today in Louisville, but I did notice it seemed like a lot of leaves are falling already, and so
Hmm.
I don't know if maybe that's a sign that it will be an early fall. I hope so.
I'm taken.
I'm ready, and
Sometimes you get a little of that late summer, it's been a hot summer, kind of exhaustion from the trees, and they start to drop some leaves.
yeah,
But maybe we get an early fall. That'd be
I
great.
am ready for some pumpkin spice lattes,
I bet you are, Jake. I bet
and
you are.
and Jesse's ready to pull out his cardigan to
I'm
wear.
gonna, yeah. I'm gonna send you. I'm gonna send you a box of pumpkin spice creamer that you can just put in your coffee.
Hey, if anybody wants to donate some pumpkin spice K cups for my Keurig,
Oh,
I'd be glad to.
so you want not just the creamer, you want the coffee to have
I want the
have a little of
coffee.
the taste. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
maybe you can post your mailing address somewhere so people can send you that.
Well, I don't know. They might come visit me. So anyway,
they might toilet paper your apartment.
Yeah, they might. So, but anyway, we're glad to be here. And always remember, if you have any suggestions of topics or things that you would like for Jesse and I to discuss, please feel free to email. Let us know on X/Twitter/ whatever it's called. And as we always like to say, stay Baptist, our friends.
Stay Baptist.